All right, so get this. We're diving deep today into something pretty mind-bending. How to make large language models. You know, the AI behind things like ChatGPT, even smarter.
Oh, yeah.
And you might be thinking, aren't they already pretty smart?
Definitely.
Yeah, you'd be right. But here's the thing. We're not just talking about making them bigger. We're talking about revolutionizing how they think.
Like giving them a whole new mental toolbox.
Ooh, I like that. So we're exploring this framework called REVTHINK, which I have to admit initially sounded kind of like some supervillain plot.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's all about boosting these models' reasoning skills through the power of reverse thinking.
You know how you sometimes double check your math by working backward from the answer?
Right.
Or maybe figure out why a recipe went wrong by analyzing the, shall we say, interesting results. What's reverse thinking in action?
Right. It's like those brain teaser puzzles where
Yeah.
you know the ending and have to retrace the steps.
What's that stuff?
REVTHINK is basically applying that same logic to LLMs.
Exactly. It's training them to think, not just forward from problem to solution, but also backward from solution to problem.
Interesting.
And the results are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, my notes say that these REVTHINK trained models are not only more accurate, but they also need less training data to get there.
Right.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Especially in a world where data is like gold.
Exactly.
But before we get too deep into the how, let's take a step back. Can you remind us what large language models are and why we're even trying to improve them in the first place?
Imagine ChatGPT on steroids. That's essentially what an LLM is. They're trained on mountains of text data, which allows them to do all sorts of cool things. Write different types of creative content, translate languages, answer your questions in an informative way. They're like linguistic superheroes.
Okay, so they're already impressive, but where's the room for improvement? What's the catch?
Well, the way LLMs are traditionally trained focuses on what we call unidirectional reasoning. They learn to follow a set path from question to answer, which can be limiting when you're dealing with complex problems that require more nuanced, flexible thinking.
So they can get stuck in a rut, so to speak.
Exactly.
That makes sense. So that's where REVTHINK comes in, is shaking things up with this bidirectional approach.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through how this actually works?
The rethink involves two main stages, data augmentation and student model learning.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You have a brilliant teacher, LLM, and a bright but less experienced
The student.
LLM. So like a master class for AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It starts with the teacher LLM
Yeah.
working with a data set of question and answer pairs.
Okay.
The teacher generates the usual forward reasoning steps. But here's where the magic happens. It also creates a backward question based on the original process.
Hold on. A backward question. Can you give us an example of what that looks like?
Let's say the original question from a data set focused on strategic thinking
is,
could the members of the police perform lawful arrests?
The teacher LLM might generate a backward question like, if the members of the police couldn't perform lawful arrests, then the police are likely A, musicians, B, police officers.
Wow. Okay, I see what you mean. It's like flipping the script.
Yeah.
Forcing the LLM to think about the solution first and then work its way back to the original question.
Exactly. And then the teacher generates backward reasoning to answer this flipped question.
Okay.
But there's a crucial quality control step here. We only want to use high-quality data for training.
So they don't just accept any answer the teacher comes up with.
Not at all. The teacher model double-checks everything, making sure that the backward reasoning aligns perfectly with the original question and its answer. Only the data points that pass this test make it into the augmented data set.
That makes sense. It's like they're making sure the student is learning from the best possible examples.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this supercharged data set. Thanks to the teacher LLM, what happens next?
Now it's the student's turn. This smaller student LLM is trained on the augmented data set. But it's not just learning to answer the original questions. It's actually learning three things.
Okay.
First, how to generate forward reasoning, like traditional models. Second, how to generate those clever backward questions from the original problem. And third, how to reason backward from those flipped questions.
So it's learning to think about the problem from all angles, forward and backward.
Precisely. And here's the really interesting part. When it comes to actually solving problems in the real world, the student LLM only uses forward reasoning, just like it would in regular scenario. The backward steps are happening behind the scenes during training.
That's fascinating. It's like when we learn multiplication tables by rote, we might not consciously think about them all the time, but they're there in the background, helping us solve more complex problems.
That's a great analogy. And this approach, this thinking backward strategy, is what gives REVTHINK its edge.
So what's the big payoff? What makes REVTHINK so special?
Hashtag TTS, the Deep Dive episode, 2024-1208, part 2 of 3. Well, first and foremost, REVTHINK leads to some serious performance boosts. We're talking about an average improvement of almost 14% on a variety of reasoning tasks. It even consistently outperforms other advanced methods, like something called symbolic knowledge distillation.
14%, that's a pretty significant leap.
Yeah.
And what about the whole less is more aspect? My notes mention that REVTHINK is remarkably efficient when it comes to training data.
Absolutely. REVTHINK needs considerably less training data than those traditional methods to reach that same level of performance. In some cases, using just 10% of the training data with REVTHINK can actually outperform symbolic knowledge distillation trained on the entire dataset.
Wow, so it's not just about making LLMs smarter, it's about making them learn smarter.
Right.
This feels like a big deal, especially in areas where gathering and labeling data is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Are there any other advantages that make REVTHINK stand out?
Here's another one. REVTHINK-trained models show a remarkable ability to generalize any trains. They perform better on unseen datasets, suggesting that they're not just memorizing patterns, but actually developing a deeper understanding of the underlying structures of problems, for example.
Yeah.
Even on a specially designed dataset where the math problems were intentionally reversed, REVTHINK still outshone other methods.
So they're not just good at what they've been trained on. They can actually apply their knowledge to new and unfamiliar situations.
Right.
It's a big win in the world of AI.
It certainly is. It points to a more robust and adaptable learning process.
Okay, the notes also mention scalability, meaning that this approach works even better as the models get bigger. And here's a really cool tidbit. A small LLM trained with REVTHINK can actually outperform a much larger model trained with traditional methods.
Wow.
That's like David taking down Goliath in the AI world.
It's a testament to the power of this bidirectional training.
Yeah.
It seems to be tapping into something fundamental about how learning works,
Yeah.
regardless of size.
That's really interesting.
And there's even more. REVTHINK isn't just a standalone solution. It can actually be combined with other data augmentation techniques for even greater performance boosts.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like taking an already powerful tool and making it even sharper.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
One example is combining REVTHINK with something called answer augmentation, ANSOG for short, instead of having the teacher model come up with just one correct reasoning chain for a question. ANSOG encourages the teacher to generate multiple valid paths to the same answer.
So it's like giving the student model a variety of different ways to approach the same problem.
Precisely, it exposes the student to a wider range of logical reasoning, which helps it learn even more effectively.
And did they see even bigger improvements when they combine REVTHINK with ANSOG?
Yes, the results were even better than either method alone, suggesting they work together quite well.
Okay, so REVTHINK is not a one-trick pony. It's a versatile tool that can be integrated with other techniques to further enhance the capabilities of these LLMs. It really feels like we're on the brink of something extraordinary, especially given how quickly AI is advancing. But with all this talk about making LLMs smarter, I can't help but wonder about the bigger picture. What does it mean for us as humans to live in a world where AI is becoming increasingly capable of complex reasoning? It's exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time.
It's a question a lot of people are asking, and rightfully so. AI is changing our world at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
And it's crucial that we have open and honest discussions about both the benefits and the potential challenges. As we've seen, AI models are still a reflection of the data they're trained on, which ultimately comes from us.
Humans. So even with a technique
Right.
as advanced as REVTHINK, we need to be mindful of the fact that we're the ones shaping how these models learn and evolve.
That's an important point. It highlights the responsibility we have to guide AI development in a direction.
Yeah, that benefits everyone. You mentioned earlier that REVTHINK seems to be particularly effective for certain types of problems, especially those where you can easily work backward from the solution. I'm curious, are there any areas where this reverse thinking approach might not be as helpful? Are there limits to its magic?
You raise a good point. While REVTHINK has been successful across a wide range of tasks, it's likely there are domains where it may not offer the same advantages. For instance, problems that rely heavily on creativity or abstract thinking, where there isn't always a clear inverse relationship between the problem and the solution, might not benefit as much from this approach. Imagine trying to teach an AI to write a poem. Using reverse thinking, it wouldn't be as straightforward as, say, reversing the steps in a math equation.
That makes sense. Poetry is all about feeling, nuance, and sometimes even breaking the rules of logic.
Exactly. While AI has made some strides in creative writing tasks that require genuine originality and exploring uncharted territory may need different training techniques.
So it sounds like REVTHINK won't be replacing human poets anytime soon.
I wouldn't worry about that just yet, but it's fascinating to consider how this idea of reverse thinking might spark new and innovative ways to teach AI to be more creative after all. There's always room for inspiration and out-of-the-box thinking.
That actually reminds me of something that's been bouncing around in my head. As we've been talking about REVTHINK, it's not just about making AI faster or more accurate. It's almost like we're trying to teach it to think more like us. This whole concept of double-checking work, looking at problems from different angles. We encourage those things in human learning all the time.
That's a really insightful observation in a sense. By teaching AI to reason bidirectionally, we're not only making it more capable, but also making it more relatable. It's like we're bridging the gap between human and artificial intelligence, creating a space where we can better understand how these models learn and potentially even learn from them in return.
I love that idea, a two-way exchange of knowledge. So as we wrap up this deep dive into REVTHINK, I think the key takeaway is that it's a powerful tool for enhancing how AI reasons, and its success shows us the potential of incorporating more human-like thinking into AI development.
I absolutely agree. And as we move forward in this age of rapid advancements, it's vital that we continue to explore innovative training approaches that not only make AI more capable, but also more aligned with our values. Hashtag TTS, the Deep Dive episode 2024-1208, part 3 of 3.
It really does feel like we're standing at the edge of something incredible with all these AI advancements. But as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. You mentioned earlier that REVTHINK can inherit biases from the data, which makes sense. It's learning from us after all, and we humans aren't exactly perfect. So how can researchers make sure we're developing AI that's not only smart, but also fair and unbiased?
That's a crucial question. And the good news is that researchers are tackling this head-on. One approach is to carefully curate the training data itself, making sure to identify and reduce any biased content. There are also techniques being developed to spot and correct for biases during the actual training process, preventing the student model from simply mimicking any flaws the teacher model might have.
So it's like putting safety measures in place to ensure that AI learns from the best of human intelligence while avoiding those less desirable aspects.
That's a good way to think about it. We're aiming to create a more positive cycle where AI can learn from our strengths and help us overcome our weaknesses.
I like that it's like a true partnership. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the practical side of things. What are some of the real-world applications of these smarter LLMs that have you excited? How could they impact our lives in a tangible way?
The possibilities are pretty vast, and I think we're only just scratching the surface. One area with huge potential is personalized education. Imagine AI tutors that can adapt to each student's unique learning style and pace, providing truly customized guidance and support.
That would be revolutionary, especially for students who don't always thrive in a traditional classroom environment.
Exactly. And it goes far beyond education. We could see these smarter LLMs revolutionizing healthcare, helping doctors with diagnosis and treatment planning, or even offering personalized health advice to patients.
It's amazing to think how AI could empower us to take better care of ourselves. What other areas come to mind?
Well, scientific research is another field that could be transformed. AI could analyze massive data sets, identify hidden patterns, and even generate new hypotheses, accelerating the pace of discovery. And in the creative realm, these smarter LMs could become powerful tools for artists, writers, musicians, inspiring new forms of expression and collaboration.
It's truly mind-blowing to think about all the ways AI could amplify our creativity and push the limits of human ingenuity. But of course, while there are so many potential benefits, it's also important to think about the potential downsides as we integrate these increasingly intelligent machines into our lives. What are some of the challenges we should be mindful of?
One concern that often comes up is the impact on jobs as AI becomes more capable of doing things that humans currently do. There's a natural worry about job displacement.
It's a valid concern, and I think it's crucial that we have open and honest conversations about how to manage this transition and make sure everyone benefits from these advancements.
Absolutely. We need to invest in retraining programs, create new opportunities, and rethink how we approach work in a world where AI plays a larger role.
It's about adapting and evolving alongside these technologies, figuring out how to leverage them for the greater good.
Precisely the future of AI is being shaped right now,
Hmm.
and it's a future that holds immense promise. It's up to all of us to make sure we're steering it in a direction that benefits all of humanity.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into REVTHINK and the world of increasingly intelligent LLMs, the key takeaway is this AI is rapidly becoming more capable, and it's our responsibility to ensure we're using this power wisely and for the betterment of society.
I couldn't agree more. It's a future full of exciting possibilities, and it's up to us to navigate it thoughtfully.
And to all of you listening out there, we encourage you to keep exploring this fascinating and ever-changing field. Stay curious, keep learning, and as always, keep diving deep.